everyone, this is James from TDB, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today I am going to be drinking one tea and talking a bit about the small leaf varietal that you'll run into in the 6 famous tea mountains in Yibang specifically. So I realized I hadn't done a video on this, and this is something that certainly covered, or at least covered material adjacent to it. But within the 6 famous tea mountains, so we're talking Yiwu, Manzhuan on the east side, Yoda on the west side, and in the middle you have Xikong, Yibang, and Mengzhi. Those three will have some amount of small leaf. In particular, Yibang is really associated with it. So within Yibang, sort of like Yiwu, where you'll have like the specific Yiwu towns and different sub-areas of it, within Yibang you can have different areas too. So Yibang is one. Probably the second most you'll hear about is Xikong or Mansang. Mansang in particular is a very historical tea growing area. I mean, really the 6 famous tea mountains in general are, but Mansang specifically. So that's one area where you're going to see some pretty pricey tea. If the tea is cheap and it's marketed as Mansang, it's probably not legitimate. We're talking pretty expensive cakes at this point too. And the character is just a bit different than Yiwu. And if you directly compare them, you're going to see a smaller leaf there. So that's just something to note. In my experience, they tend to run a little bit sweeter. They kind of have more of this honey aromatic to them. Some of them are softer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they always are. I'd say one pretty good place to find them is Shangming Tea Factory, which has some not cheap, but pretty high quality Yibang productions with just very high quality leaves. So that's a good place to seek it out if it's a type you're interested in. And it is, I'd say, adjacent to Yiwu. It's certainly more related to Yiwu than something like Bulong or whatever over on the western side of Xishuangbanna. So yeah, definitely an area to check out and see if they are up your alley or not. And yeah, it definitely has its own unique character. So the tea I'm going to be drinking here was sent in by Stein, so thank you, Stein. It is the 2012 Jixiang Jushi, so the mainland boutique that has a lot in common with Taiwanese boutiques, Xikong. And so yeah, it's just a kind of a nice small leaf varietal. For me, at least, this tea is pretty easy drinking. So I wanted to bring this on and use it as an excuse to talk about the small leaf varietal. I think in a future episode, I will directly compare kind of a Yiwu production with the smaller leaf, and then we can really look at the wet leaf. Take a look at the wet leaf here too, and so we can really kind of contrast what we would expect. So yeah, let's get into the tea. Okay, so here we go. I gave this a quick double rinse just so we could get into the tea a little faster. Would not do that ordinarily if it was just me drinking, but I just want to feature more of those muddy steeps. Wow. Very rich bouquet. Sugarcane. You can tell it used to have a lot of those greener notes, but they're retiring a little bit. Yeah, definitely like sugarcane, maybe a little bit of florals, but those are definitely retiring. A bit of brown sugar perhaps too. Cheers. And one thing I will note is that a lot of the good ones are sturdier. So good does not necessarily mean like softer. In fact, I would say this tea is on the softer side of things. And the Shangming Tea Factory in particular makes pretty sturdy tea that is going to last for a while. Interesting, not quite as sweet as I expected. It has this apple crispness to it, like more like the crispness of a fresh apple rather than like apple crisp. The body is thick enough. It's not super thick. Actually, it's not nearly as sweet as I anticipated it would be. Interesting. Okay. We'll see where this is going. The compression, I could tell, was quite loose on it. Another operation that had some good ones back in the day was Tea Urchin. In particular, they had one that was done by I think a somewhat well-known figure in Xikong, so those were quite good too. apple, wood, just not quite as sweet as I thought it'd be. Yeah, and you can look at the leaves and just tell they're pretty small. I mean, I think we're getting pretty good extraction right now just because the compression is so loose. I think that plays into it. So I sometimes would push this steep, but instead I'm going to let this go. The aftertaste is mostly front focus, not quite as as much depth as I would necessarily hope for a tea like this. Again, this is not like a top-end production. I don't think Stein has any illusions about that either. Yeah, I mean, it is sweet. It's just not as sweet as I thought it'd be. The nose indicated as well that it would be pretty rich. And I didn't exactly give these super long steeps either. But that's why we do the double rinse, because we can kind of skip past that first steep, which is usually pretty light anyways. Cheers. Okay, now we're getting a little bit of that sugar cane. I would say a little bit of the sweetness of the apple is coming through too. It's lightened up just a bit. I would say this is not weak per se, but it's not as sturdy as the best productions would be either. Probably not a great pick to age. Not that it'll be terrible, just that I don't see exactly where it would go from here. It's pleasant. It's simple. It's easygoing. And let's give this just one last push and see what we can get out of it. So I gave this tea just a little bit of a kick, just to see how it will do. Not a huge kick, because it hasn't softened up fully yet. I think this is probably a good example as well of a case where a single origin tea gets a little dull. I think this is probably at this point probably kind of like an office brewer rather than like a very nerd out on the tea. Just because it's decent, but it's struggling to really get like me super excited in it. Yeah, it's kind of like the other ones. It's not biting back super much, just maybe a bit of astringency there. I think the tea is letting up already a bit. So we will give these leaves a soak, and we will take a quick look at the wet leaf. Okay, so taking a quick look at the wet leaf here, we could just see that the leaves are on the small side of things, just by examining them. Let's see if we can find a whole leaf here. So something like this. This is one of the bigger ones there. And I have over here the Shanjiang Chuanqi, which is a very imperfect comparison to this because it's a Six Famous Mountain blend, but it uses some small leaf varietal too, undoubtedly. But the leaves are a fair bit bigger than that tea. Again, we will do a direct comparison with perhaps an Yiwu tea at some point, or a Monton tea, where I think it will be a little more obvious. But yeah, if you look at the leaves, they are small, certainly for Mengla County, where Yiwu is based. So thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you liked this episode. I'll see you all next time.